is it going, everybody? So what do we have here? We have a bottle which used to contain a sugary milk drink, and it ended up in the ocean, as this kind of stuff does so often. But it has not been left unoccupied. So you can see two small fishes in this bottle, and they have made it their home, and they're also breeding in there. So they're using the solid surface as a structure to attach their eggs to. And these fish I have seen many times in human trash items. Now, what kind of fish are we talking about here? These are two yellow Pygmy Gobys, Lubricogobius exiguus, and they are very pretty fish, so they are really prized by underwater photographers, and particularly this shot where they're coming out of a bottle is kind of an iconic shot at this point. So, how come we have a fish species here which lives in human trash? What did they do, before the Industrial Revolution, before humans started throwing refuse into the ocean? So they evolved to live in these invertebrate burrows, as you can see here. So this is a emptied burrow of a worm. The worm has died, I'm pretty sure, and that's where they live now. And I've also seen them in the dead tests in the shells of sea urchins. So basically that's where they evolved to live, but at this point trash is so much more common than invertebrate burrows in a lot of dive sites. And I'm not diving in a particularly trashy site, but this is just a state of the ocean in the year 2025. So these gobies here also share these bottles with Ambulocentus breviceps, which is a small damselfish, and they seem to be getting along rather well, it seems. Obviously the damselfish is quite a bit bigger than these gobies, but the damselfish wouldn't attack them, so the gobies would just move out of the way when the damselfish decided to get out. So this is in these muck habitats where there are predatory fish. So for a small fish, a bottle, and I think this is actually a rum bottle, this is a different bottle than the one at the beginning of this video. These bottles are godsend, where God in this case is real, and it's a human who decided to just throw his trash, probably his trash, into the ocean. Now, there are two interesting concepts we should talk about here. One is the Kulturfolger. So Kultur means culture in German, and Folger is somebody who follows. And then together the compound noun, which is something German is so good at, is Kulturfolger, which means somebody who follows human culture, or really more technology. And such a Kulturfolger is just an animal which does well in an environment which has been modified by humans. And this little fish, this Lubricogobius exiguus, is such a Kulturfolger. The other interesting concept we have here is the Anthropocene. So that means it's the geological age where humans are dominating the surface of the earth. Now this was recently, and I'm linking to my comment about that, rejected by the official scientific body as a geological age, but we're on the way there at least. And in the Anthropocene, the Kulturfolger is of a great advantage. So these little gobies, they are among the winners of human modifications of planet Earth. Now, looking at the scientific literature, I found an interesting paper by Oyama and colleagues, and they studied these gobies in Kagoshima, which is the southern end of mainland Japan. So that they're further south, there are more islands in Japan, but mainland Japan, the very south, and they put artificial breeding sites, which were essentially PVC bottles, in the ocean, and then they checked what happens with these gobies. So it turns out most of them were around in early August, so there were 2 bouts of larval recruitment, and then the number of these gobies greatly increased. So they did the math from this, their occurrence data, and they found that a lot of the individuals only live for about 80 days. So a lot of these small fishes are really short-lived. And they also looked at the amount of occurrences of gobies in their artificial nests, and they found that on average there were most of these gobies were either in couples of 2 adults, or there was 1 juvenile, 1 adult, or more than 1 juvenile. And so basically they very quickly find a partner and form couples. Really interesting paper. So, there's still a lot to discover when it comes to these muck habitats, essentially the sandy areas besides coral reefs, which are very different ecosystems from coral reefs. So always a pleasure to see that scientific colleagues are tackling questions related to these muck habitats. So yeah, I hope you get the chance to see one of these little gobies when you're doing muck diving, and I hope you get to reflect a little bit on the biology and on the conceptual importance of these gobies. Let me also show you a little bit behind the scenes footage. So what we have here, this is my camera, which is a OM Systems TG6, which is a fantastic camera and a wee fine light. And I placed that in the sand. And I'm very careful that I'm not disturbing anything or breaking anything. And then I get to film this small fish without much shake. And you might think that there's a very strong light here, and this is true. But then, I actually turn down the light from maximum power, and generally these fish don't seem to bother. So once they have gotten accustomed to my presence, which typically takes less than a minute, they come out and do their thing. So this is how to get this footage. The main challenge to me is really to find this small fish. I hope you enjoyed this video, and check back soon. More underwater content from the Philippines is on the way. Bye!